So Daniel in New York.
Uh-oh.
How are you?
Hi, Daniel. I'm really excited to hear your question.
Daniel, are you there?
Daniel.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so it says here that your question is, if God didn't create everything, then who did? Is that an accurate representation of your question?
I mean, I'm not necessarily who did, but what did, because
okay,
I'm not
because who did is a problem.
Really,
yeah, if you say so, that's why I was laughing, because if the question is, if God didn't create everything, who did? That is literally word for word the question I've pointed out many times on the show. Represents a gross conceptual error, because it's like, oh, if God didn't create the universe, who did? Well, what makes you think it's a who? And so what you're really asking, which I'm glad we worked out at the beginning, is if in fact everything that exists wasn't created by God, then what is the explanation for existence, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. How about we don't know, and neither do you or anybody else? What's wrong with that answer?
So that means, we just live in we just live the mystery like that. That means, so what's the explanation that there's no other life out there in the galaxy, in other galaxies, and
that's not what I said.
Other lives.
Daniel, I made no declaration about what other life there is or what I literally said, what if the answer is we don't know? Like, I have no idea why there's something rather than nothing, and as far as I can tell, neither do you or anybody else. Okay. That doesn't mean we're never going to know. That doesn't mean you stop looking. But I don't know why I don't have an explanation for everything. Do you?
No, I don't. I don't either.
Yeah. So we're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And so it's the people who are claiming that there's a God who have adopted a burden of proof, right?
All right. I just wanted to I just wanted to get that clear, but since you made it clear that hello?
Yeah,
hello.
We're still here.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay. I just wanted to make wanted to get that clear, but since you made it clear that we can get comfortable with not knowing what is the source of creation and just
That's
living
not what
the
I said.
That means we just.
That's not what I said.
So we just.
That's not what I said. I don't think you should be comfortable with not knowing. Your discomfort with not knowing is what encourages us to go out and look. Like, I don't know what causes cancer and I don't know how to cure cancer, but that doesn't mean I'm comfortable not knowing that. We should continue to do research and try to find out. What I say people should do is get comfortable with saying they don't know when they don't know. But I'm not suggesting we just sit around and go, well, let's throw up our hands and give up. That's never the right solution for me.
And I made a point recently in a video that I did that speaks to what you just said too, Matt, which is there's a lot of danger in assuming you know. Because when you assume you know, when you say, I already have the answer for everything, like you create an agent like a God and say, this agent is the answer for everything. Every question you could conceivably ask for all of the rest of time, the answer is this agent. Then you are no longer incentivized to look outside of that paradigm for the actual, natural answers to questions. So it disincentivizes you from being more curious and investigating things further. So saying you already know is actually something that you should be uncomfortable with, especially when you would have to admit that you don't, because you're cutting yourself off at the knees there by saying you already know something, A, you clearly can't, and B, that it still needs and requires investigation. If you think you already know the answer to it, then why investigate? And if you are investigating, then you're tacitly admitting that you actually don't know the answer. You're just asserting that you do.
Is that all clear, Daniel?
Okay, that's clear.
Cool.
Awesome. Appreciate that.
Did you have anything else?
I think it's going to be similar answer for any other question I have. It's going to be similar question. I was going to ask about, stuff about that has to do with the afterlife and and the purpose for our living, but I think it's similar answer. The same thing applies,
It could be a similar answer. Like, I'm not going to pretend that I know what happens after we die. However, the notion that there is something that makes me, some part of me, which survives my death, is patently absurd. Because we know from the way the brain works and the way that the brain can be manipulated that I can, through damage, change someone's personality, someone's memory, someone's desires, every little thing that makes me, my memories, my desires, all of that is identifiable as a function of the brain and is subject to change upon damage to the brain. And in that scenario, if let's say I got hit over the head with a hammer today, and all of a sudden I started believing in Jesus, does that mean that I'm saved? Well, I don't know. What if I was a Christian who believed in Jesus and thought I was saved, but I got hit over the head with a hammer and it changed it so that now I don't believe? Does that mean I'm going to hell? In either case, the things that make me are identifiably a function of my brain. There's no good evidence that any function of my brain exists after I'm dead. And so the notion that I could have any sort of an afterlife is probably one of the most obviously wrong things that theism has ever put out there.
I'm just going to co-sign that. I don't have anything really additional to add.
But it's still, we're not claiming to know. But like, there are some things where you might say, I don't know what the explanation is for the origin of the universe, but there needs to be some explanation, assuming an origin. When it comes to like what happens after death, there's no reason to think there's any such time as after death for the person that you're talking to. As far as I can tell, when I'm dead, it's over for me.
Yeah, and if you get me started on brains, then we'll just.
So what you're trying to say is no consciousness. I mean, because I've had this. I've thought about this several times, but I'm just trying to. Is that that means our consciousness ends with our life, or do our consciousness outlive even when we die? That's something that gets me borderline.
Right. We have no evidence that I'm aware of for consciousness outside of a brain. Do you have any evidence for a conscious agent that is not a brain?
But you can remember that, but there is life without consciousness. For example, like the fetus in the womb, no consciousness, but it's life. It has life. So
I'm not asking about life. I'm saying I was asking if there's any evidence of consciousness outside of a brain.
Yeah, because if you're talking about afterlives, you would need something to go to that afterlife, right? Some sort of consciousness would need to go, some semblance of you, something that represents or continues on as a you would need to be in the afterlife. So what Matt's saying, which I agree with wholeheartedly, is that you can augment your brain structures and it fundamentally changes the conceptualization that you have of you, what you are, who you are, how you act, how you behave, how you perceive things. All of that is malleable throughout life and is directly linked to the brain. Once the brain is dead, you no longer have consciousness that can be interacted with. So what goes on? Do you think your consciousness exists outside of your brain? Is there a consciousness that can't exist without a brain? Because if there isn't, what's in the afterlife?
Okay, that I think that's the answer of the question. I think.
Okay, doke.
I think. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Daniel. And if you have more questions, or better yet, if you have more answers in the future, feel free to give us a call.
And you were lovely to interact with, so thank you, Daniel.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. Have a good rest of your day.
I almost asked him if he wanted to hang up on us, but